Imagine a road late at night. The air is cold and thick with a damp chill that settles deep into your bones. This is Blackwood Road. It is not just any road, it is a ribbon of asphalt that cuts through the oldest, darkest parts of the countryside. A place where modern streetlights have never dared to shine. The only illumination comes from the weak beams of your headlights, which honestly seem to be swallowed by the oppressive darkness that presses in from all sides. The ancient trees that line the route lean over the tarmac, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, creating a tunnel of shadows that feels both endless and suffocating. The silence here is profound, a heavy blanket that smothers every sound. The quiet on Blackwood Road is not peaceful. It is a tense, waiting silence, as if the entire landscape is holding its breath. The usual sounds of the night, the rustle of nocturnal animals in the undergrowth, the distant hoot of an owl, the whisper of the wind through the leaves, are strangely absent. All you can hear is the low hum of your car's engine and the soft crunch of tires on the pavement. This unnatural stillness creates a deep sense of unease, a feeling that you are an intruder in a place that does not welcome visitors. Every shadow seems to move just at the edge of your vision, and every flicker of light plays tricks on your mind, making you question what is real and what is not. As you drive deeper into this void, the world outside your car begins to feel distant and unreal. The comforting glow of town lights has long since faded in your rearview mirror, leaving you completely isolated. There are no other cars, no houses, no signs of life. It is just you, your vehicle, and the suffocating darkness. The feeling of being watched becomes almost unbearable, a primal instinct that screams at you to turn back. But the road has a strange way of pulling you forward, of making you feel as though turning around is no longer an option. The air grows colder, and a thin, swirling mist begins to gather on the road ahead, clinging to the ground like a shroud. This is the very essence of Blackwood Road, a place that exists on the fringe of our world. It is a location that has earned a chilling reputation in both the United Kingdom and Australia, with tales that are remarkably similar despite the vast distance separating them. Locals who know of its legend avoid it at all costs, especially after the sun has set. They speak in hushed tones of a road that does not just lead from one place to another, but instead leads into a realm of fear and confusion. It is a place where the normal rules of reality seem to bend and break, and where the deepest fears of the human mind are given form in the lonely, silent dark. The legend of Blackwood Road is as old as the towns it connects. For generations, stories have been passed down, whispered from parent to child as a cautionary tale. It is said that the road was built over ancient, forgotten ground, a place where boundaries between worlds are thin and easily crossed. Some historical accounts suggest it follows the path of an old drover's trail, where countless tragedies occurred long before the first layer of asphalt was ever laid. These tales speak of travelers who vanished without a trace, their carts and belongings found abandoned by the side of the path, with no clues as to what became of them. The road, it seems, has always had a hunger. Over the years, the nature of the stories has changed, but their terrifying core has remained the same. In the age of the automobile, the missing travelers became missing drivers. Local archives are filled with unsettling reports of cars discovered empty on Blackwood Road, their engines cold, doors sometimes left wide open. The personal effects of the drivers are often still inside, wallets, phones, and half-empty coffee cups, suggesting they did not leave willingly or in a hurry. It is as if they were simply plucked from their vehicles, erased from existence in the blink of an eye. The police investigations that follow these disappearances always hit a dead end, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and grieving families. The reputation of Blackwood Road grew with each new incident. It became known as a place where the supernatural holds sway, a pocket of the world where logic and reason fail. Drivers who managed to traverse the road at night and return safely often came back with disturbing stories of their own. They spoke of sudden, inexplicable fog banks that would descend upon them so thick that they could not see the front of their own car. They reported strange electrical malfunctions, with radios switching stations on their own to play static or eerie, distorted music. Headlights would flicker and die, plunging them into complete darkness for terrifying, heart-stopping moments before mysteriously coming back to life. These experiences created a pervasive atmosphere of fear that surrounds the road. It is more than just a local ghost story. It is a tangible dread that keeps people away. Many believe that the road itself is sentient, a malevolent entity that preys on the lonely and the lost. They say it tests those who dare to travel its length, playing with their minds and feeding on their terror. The disappearances are the ultimate proof of its power, a chilling reminder that some places are best left alone. The question that has haunted the local communities for decades is not whether the road is haunted, but what exactly it is that haunts it and what it wants with the people it claims. Liam was a practical man, not one to believe in ghosts or legends. At 24 years old, he was a delivery driver, working long hours to save up for his future. He was familiar with the back roads and country lanes, and he prided himself on his efficiency and his knowledge of the quickest routes. On the evening of October 28th, just a few years ago, he picked up his last package of the day. The destination was a remote farmhouse on the other side of Blackwood Forest. His GPS suggested a longer, safer route, but Liam, tired and eager to get home, saw a shortcut. It was a road he had never taken before, a thin, dark line on his map labelled simply Blackwood Road. He thought nothing of it. As he turned onto the infamous road, the last rays of sunlight were fading from the sky, and a deep twilight was settling over the landscape. At first, everything seemed normal. The road was narrow and winding, but it was paved and clear. He drove for about 10 minutes, a dense forest closing in on either side of it. Then, he noticed the silence. The cheerful music playing on his van's radio began to crackle with static before cutting out completely. He tried to find another station, but all he could get was a low, humming hiss. Annoyed but not yet alarmed, he turned the radio off, plunging the cabin into an unnerving quiet. It was then that the fog started. It did not roll in from the fields or descend from the hills. It seemed to rise directly from the asphalt itself, a thick, white vapor that swirled around his van. Within moments, visibility dropped to near zero. Liam slowed his vehicle to a crawl, leaning forward and squinting to see the road ahead. The fog was unnaturally dense and cold, and it seemed to follow him, clinging to his van like a living thing. He felt a prickle of unease, the first real stirrings of fear. The road felt longer than it should have, and he had the disorienting feeling that he was driving in circles, even though the path ahead was straight. Suddenly, a shape loomed out of the mist directly in front of him. Liam slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. The van skidded to a halt, just inches from a figure standing motionless in the middle of the road. It was tall and unnaturally thin, a dark silhouette against the swirling white fog. It had no discernible features, just a vague, human-like shape that seemed to absorb the light from his headlights. For a long, terrifying moment, it simply stood there, watching him. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it dissolved back into the mist, leaving Liam alone in the suffocating silence, his breath catching in his throat as pure terror took hold. The fog that enveloped Liam's van was no ordinary weather phenomenon. It was an active, malevolent presence, a thick, suffocating blanket that seemed to have a mind of its own. It did not drift or disperse with the wind. Instead, it clung to his vehicle with a chilling persistence, moving with him as he cautiously started driving again. The white tendrils of mist pressed against the windows, obscuring his view of the outside world and creating a claustrophobic, isolated bubble. He felt as though he'd been swallowed whole by a vast, white emptiness, a world devoid of anything but his own mounting fear and the low thrum of the engine. The cold intensified, seeping through the metal frame of the van and chilling him to the core. As he crept forward, more figures began to emerge from the dense fog. They appeared at the edges of the road, standing silently in the trees, their forms indistinct and wraith-like. Some were tall and slender like the first one, while others were stooped and contorted into unnatural shapes. They did not move or make a sound. They simply stood and watched him pass, their presence a heavy, oppressive weight. What was most terrifying was that among the vague, shadowy silhouettes, he began to see faces he recognized. He saw the faint outline of a childhood friend who had moved away years ago, and the ghostly image of an old teacher. Their eyes were blank and empty, their expressions devoid of any emotion. This parade of spectral onlookers turned his drive into a waking nightmare. The familiar faces twisted something deep inside him, a confusion and horror that was far worse than seeing simple ghosts. Why were they here? Were they a warning, or were they part of the trap? The figures seemed to be multiplying, lining the road like a silent, ghostly reception committee. He tried to speed up, to push through the fog and escape their vacant stares, but the road seemed to stretch on forever. The van's engine began to sputter, as if it too was struggling against some unseen force. The feeling of being completely and utterly alone, yet surrounded by countless eyes, was a torment that frayed his nerves to their breaking point. The figures grew bolder, stepping closer to the road as he passed. He could now see their details more clearly in the weak glow of his headlights. Their clothes were from different eras. Some wore modern attire, while others were dressed in old-fashioned, tattered garments. They were the lost souls of Blackwood Road, the other drivers and travelers who had vanished into its grasp. Liam realized with a sickening lurch of his stomach that this was the fate that awaited him. He was not just a witness to the road's haunting, he was its next victim, destined to join the silent watching crowd. The fog was not just hiding them, it was their domain, their prison, and it was now closing in on him. Just when Liam thought the situation could not get any more terrifying, his phone rang. The sudden piercing sound in the dead silence of the van made him jump, his heart leaping into his throat. He fumbled for the device, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He glanced at the screen, hoping for a lifeline, a connection to the real world he'd left behind. But what he saw sent a fresh wave of ice-cold dread through his veins. The screen displayed his own name. The call was coming from his own number. For a moment he was paralyzed by confusion and sheer disbelief. How was this possible? It had to be a glitch, a malfunction caused by whatever strange energy permeated this cursed place. His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation, but there was none. Logic had abandoned him the moment he turned onto this road. Against his better judgment, driven by a desperate, morbid curiosity, he answered the call. He lifted the phone to his ear, his hand trembling so badly he could barely hold it steady. "Hello," he whispered, his voice hoarse and barely audible. There was no immediate response. All he could hear was a faint crackling static, like the sound of a bad connection or an empty radio channel. The sound was eerily similar to the hiss that had come from his van's radio just before it went silent. Then a voice came through the static. It was a distorted, drawn-out whisper, a sound that was both familiar and terrifyingly alien. It took him a moment to process what he was hearing, to understand the chilling reality of the situation. The voice on the other end of the line was his own. It was his voice, but it was wrong. It was slow, tired, and filled with an empty, hollow despair. It whispered a single, fragmented sentence. The words broken up by the crackling static. "Turn back," it rasped. "It's a trap. They're waiting. They look like..." The voice trailed off into a long, agonizing silence, replaced once more by the empty hiss of static. Liam stared at the phone, his mind reeling from the impossible event. He had just received a call from himself, a warning from his own voice delivered from some unknown place or time. The implications were staggering and horrifying. Was it a premonition? A message from his own future self already captured by whatever haunted this road? The call was not a lifeline, it was a confirmation of his doom. The terror he felt was no longer just about the fog or the figures, it was a deep, existential horror. The mystery of Blackwood Road had reached out and touched him directly, using his own identity as its weapon. This was the last anyone ever heard from Liam. His van was found abandoned the next morning, its engine cold, its door ajar. Liam's story, while horrifying, is not unique. It is merely the most recent and well-documented chapter in the long, dark history of Blackwood Road. For years, other drivers have reported experiences that echo the chilling details of his final journey. The theme of one's own identity being turned against them is a recurring and deeply unsettling element of the road's legend. Numerous accounts from shaken travelers describe hearing their own voices whispering to them from the empty passenger seat, offering confusing directions or muttering dire warnings. Some have heard their name being called from the darkness, spoken in a voice they instantly recognize as their own, luring them to stop the car and step outside. The phenomenon is not limited to auditory hallucinations. Several drivers have reported glancing in their rearview mirror only to see their own reflections smiling back at them with a malevolent, predatory grin. Others have seen their own face among the fleeting, shadowy figures that dart across the road or stand among the trees. Imagine the sheer terror of seeing yourself standing on the roadside, watching your own car pass by, your spectral twin's face pale and emotionless in the gloom. These experiences suggest that the entity or force on Blackwood Road does not just want to scare its victims, it wants to psychologically dismantle them, to break their sense of self before it claims them. Local law enforcement and paranormal investigators who have looked into the mysteries of the road have collected dozens of such testimonies. One widely circulated story tells of a woman who, in the 1980s, pulled over because she thought she saw a child in the road. As she got out of her car, her own voice, clear as day, spoke from the driver's seat, saying, "Don't worry, I'll take it from here." Terrified, she ran into the woods and hid, watching as her car started up on its own and drove away into the fog, never to be seen again. She was one of the lucky few who escaped, but the experience left her forever changed, haunted by the memory of her own voice stealing her life away. These tales reinforce the idea that Blackwood Road is a place where your identity is not safe. It is a place that can create a doppelganger, an echo, or a twisted reflection of you. This ghostly double seems to be a part of the road's predatory nature, a lure it uses to confuse and trap its victims. The fear it generates is profound because it strikes at the very core of who we are. If you cannot trust your own voice, your own reflection, or your own memories, then what can you trust? The road strips away everything familiar, leaving you vulnerable and lost in a nightmare of your own making. The horror of Blackwood Road taps into a primal fear that resides within all of us, the fear of losing our own identity. We navigate the world with a fundamental understanding of who we are. Our name, our voice, our face, our memories. These are the building blocks of ourself. They are the anchors that keep us grounded in reality. The legend of this haunted road is so deeply disturbing because it attacks this foundation. It suggests that the things we hold most dear, the very elements that define us as individuals, can be stolen, copied, and used against us as instruments of terror. This is a far more sophisticated and personal form of horror than a simple monster or ghost. The idea of the familiar becoming dangerous is a powerful psychological trigger. A dark, empty road is already an unsettling place, but we can rationalize that fear. We worry about our car breaking down, or about the potential for human threats. But what happens when the threat is not external? What happens when it seems to come from within? The stories of drivers hearing their own voices or seeing their own faces transform a simple fear of the unknown into a terrifying fear of the self. The enemy is no longer a shadowy figure in the woods. It is a dark reflection of you, a twisted echo that knows your deepest anxieties because it is a part of you. This concept of the doppelganger or ghostly double has been a source of fear and fascination in folklore for centuries. It is often seen as an omen of death or misfortune. Blackwood Road appears to be a place where this ancient fear becomes a terrifying reality. The entity that haunts the road seems to understand human psychology on a profound level. It does not need to rely on jump scares or grotesque monsters. Instead, it uses a subtle, creeping dread, planting seeds of doubt and confusion in its victims' minds. It makes them question their own sanity, their own perception of reality, until they are completely disoriented and vulnerable. The ultimate horror of Liam's story is not just his disappearance, but the method of his torment. The call from his own phone was the final, devastating blow. It confirmed that the barrier between himself and the monstrous force of the road had been completely shattered. His identity had been breached. This is the true warning of Blackwood Road. It is not just your life that is at risk, but your very sense of self. The road has the power to erase you, not just by making you disappear physically, but by stealing the one thing that is uniquely yours, leaving behind a hollow echo in the dark. The tales of Blackwood Road serve as more than just chilling campfire stories. They are a stark and serious warning. They speak to the danger of dismissing local legends and to the hubris of believing that we are immune to the unknown. Liam was a practical man who paid the ultimate price for underestimating the power of a place steeped in generations of fear. His story, and the countless others like it, implores us to listen to the whispers of caution, to respect the boundaries of places that have earned a dark reputation. The warning is simple: some roads are not meant to be traveled, especially not alone, and especially not at night. So what should you do if you ever find yourself in a situation like Liam's? Imagine you are driving down a deserted road late at night. The fog is growing thicker, and an unnerving silence has fallen around you. Your phone, your only link to the outside world, begins to ring. You look at the screen, and to your horror, you see your own name, your own number. The first instinct might be to answer, to solve the impossible puzzle. But the lesson of Blackwood Road is to resist that temptation. Answering that call is like opening a door for the darkness to come in. It is an invitation for the unknown to take hold of you. The wisest course of action, according to those who study these phenomena, is to not engage. Do not answer the phone. Do not stop the car to investigate strange figures. Do not listen to the whispers that call your name. Your only goal should be to keep moving, to push through the fear and get back to the safety of the known world. The force on Blackwood Road seems to feed on attention, on curiosity, and on terror. By ignoring its tricks, by refusing to play its game, you may deny it the power it needs to ensnare you. It is a battle of wills, and your survival depends on your ability to hold on to your own reality and refuse to acknowledge its twisted version. This warning extends beyond the supernatural. It is a metaphor for the dangers of isolation, and the tricks our own minds can play on us when we are under extreme stress. In the lonely dark, fear can become a powerful, disorienting force. The legend of Blackwood Road is a chilling reminder to always trust your instincts. If a place feels wrong, if the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, it is time to leave. Do not let curiosity or the need for a shortcut override your primal sense of danger. Some secrets are best left undisturbed, and some roads are best left off the map. We are left with the lingering, chilling mystery of Blackwood Road. The stories persist, the disappearances remain unsolved, and the road itself continues its silent, watchful existence, cutting a dark scar through the landscape. The legend has become a part of the local identity, a shared secret that binds the communities near it in a bond of fear and respect. It serves as a stark reminder that even in our modern, scientifically advanced world, there are still corners of the map marked "Here be dragons." There are places where the veil between what we know and what we fear is terrifyingly thin, and where the echoes of the past can reach out and touch the present. The questions that arise from this tale are deeply personal and unsettling. Now that you have heard the story of Liam and the others, you must ask yourself, would you dare to drive Blackwood Road at night? Would you let logic and skepticism guide you? Or would you heed the generations of warnings and choose the longer, safer path? It is easy to be brave from the comfort of your home, with the lights on and the sounds of the normal world around you. But how would you feel with nothing but the oppressive darkness for company, with the fog closing in and the silence pressing down on you? Would your courage hold? And what of the phone call? This is perhaps the most intimate and disturbing question of all. If your phone were to ring in the dead of night, displaying your own name, would you answer it? Would your curiosity get the better of you? Or would you have the strength to ignore it, to throw the phone aside and sever that impossible connection? Answering it means confronting the unknown, facing a twisted version of yourself. Ignoring it means living with the unanswered question for the rest of your life. Neither choice is easy, and both are fraught with a unique kind of terror. It is a choice between facing the monster and letting it forever haunt your imagination. In the end, the legend of Blackwood Road leaves us to ponder the nature of fear itself. It forces us to confront the fragility of our own identity and the unsettling possibility that the world is not as solid and predictable as we like to believe. The story is a challenge, a dare whispered from the shadows. Whether you choose to believe it as a true account of the supernatural or dismiss it as a collection of local folklore, its power is undeniable. The road is out there, waiting in the dark. The unanswered question hangs in the air, as thick and cold as the fog itself. Would you take the drive?